Hey everybody, welcome back to the PC Perspective Podcast. Another week hiatus, but we have returned as we always will until we don't. But anyway, I'm Sebastian Peak.
Goodbye, Jeremy Hellstrom. Sorry,
I'm Josh Walrath.
trying to hear what's going on behind me.
I'm Brett Van Sternberg.
There'll be a lot of jump cuts there.
Yeah.
It's episode 699, and this is our first opportunity to talk to you, viewer, listener, about AMD's exciting Radeon RX 7000 series announcement. But before that, let's take care of some housekeeping. We have some Patreon updates, don't we, Brett?
We absolutely do. We've got a couple fresh Patreon members. One of them is Swing Cat. I don't know how he swings, but he certainly is a cat when he's doing it. So kudos to you, my man. Thank you very much for the contribution. And the second one is, Jeff K. I would use his last name, but, I don't want to call anybody out and embarrass them because, the endless riches which he has bestowed upon us, that might be a little embarrassing. But thank you.
We're guilty pleasures.
Yeah.
So you don't want to admit that you're funding this. I can understand.
Just keep it between,
kind.
Just keep it between us.
The giving that just keeps on giving.
And we need to jump immediately to Laramie so that Josh can tell us about his food exploits.
Okay, so it's a little odd. It's very odd. So there I was, all prepped to get a burger, and my son calls me. He's like, "Hey, Dad, can I take you to lunch?" And this is not something that gets asked of me very often. And so I did. But he loves ramen. I mean, this kid lives on ramen. And there's a new ramen place that opened up in town. And so I went to the ramen place, and I got a large bowl of spicy chicken ramen. It's comprised of spicy chicken, ramen, fresh corn. Back up at the top, you can barely see it, but there is a half of a hard-boiled egg submerged beneath the broth.
As is tradition.
Covered with green onions, bean sprouts, and just a tremendous amount of broth. And so I had ramen rather than a burger. Maybe it's a healthier choice. I don't know. There's a lot of salt in that broth.
But it was good with the fatty pork, so at least you had that going for you.
This is true. It still was kind of fatty chicken, but it wasn't horribly so. And it had a decent amount of spice to it. Not tremendous. I mean, average people can only take so much spiciness. Not saying I'm above average, but I'm above average in my tolerance for spice. Not at that top level, mind, but just above average. Like in nearly everything I do, sadly.
What?
All right.
Josh was obviously just trying to save room for the richness that is AMD's Together We Advance _gaming event, because of course they have other Together We Advance events like the data center one that's coming up. But this one was all about Radeon graphics, specifically the RX 7900 XTX and RX 7900 XT without the X on the end. And Lisa Su was there, and so was I. I saw her in person walk out on stage and hold up the GPU itself, and then we had, the usual cast of characters talking about it. So, what do you guys think, just from the announcements and the rumors?
Well, I want one. Hell, I'll take two. It's too bad multi-GPU is pretty much dead across the board. I mean, not even NVIDIA supports it with the 4090. 3080 Ti, 3080, 3090, that was the last gasp of NVLink on consumer cards. And of course, AMD gave that up a while back. I mean, I suppose you could try it.
Well, there were rumors that this was going to be multi-GPU on one, package, that you were going to have GPU chiplets with CUs. What do you think about the move to simply separate GPU from the memory dies?
It's good. And I don't want to go over 3 hours worth of stuff, but we've been talking for a while that different structures require different processes. And in this case, the memory controller and the cache could certainly be put on a larger process that is less expensive because it really doesn't affect the overall performance of the logic that is in the GPU or the GCD in this case, which is 5 nanometer. The MCD stuff is 6 nanometer. And I mean, we've looked back to the past and have seen like, analog type stuff, mixed signal, that they work better on larger planar processes for the most part, that they don't require, the density and that kind of stuff that a lower process number with FinFETs will give. And so they've swapped it all into a 330 millimeter square GPU core, which is about as powerful, not quite, as a 4090, which has a 660 millimeter square, I think, somewhere around there, entire thing. And of course, using smaller chiplets around that has not only the memory controller, but the infinity cache, which in this case can be kind of considered a hybrid L2, L3 cache for a GPU. You can put those on smaller chips that you can just then use on an interposer. Interposers are not terribly expensive. You still have to pay for the silicon and some of the etching and litho and stuff on there, but that is really basic as compared to a 50 billion transistor die that the GCD seems to be. So it's you have some trade-offs. You can have smaller dies across the board, which means that you can put more of them on a wafer and you're going to have fewer defects per chip than if you have a larger chip. And so your yield is just going to go up just because. I mean, you've got all these more chips in there that are smaller in size. And so the chances of a defect showing up on them are much less. The big problem there is then you still have to mount them on a interposer, and there will be issues and sometimes mistakes and defects in mounting 7 different chips on a single interposer. But they've improved that over time because, AMD has done that with HBM, and now they're doing it with multiple chips with the MCDs and the GCD. And they're not losing a lot of performance out of it. They're able to really focus on one process technology for each kind of workload. And so these dense logic really works well on the 5 nanometer. And you don't have to have that density with the memory controller and the infinity cache. And so they throw that off to a larger, cheaper, older process. In this case, this is kind of an enhanced 7 nanometer from TSMC that they call 6 nanometer. Put it all together, and you have something that works pretty well. There's a lot of engineering behind it. There's a lot of work, a lot of years to get it to do, but it does pretty well. And so overall, you still have a smaller overall product than the 49er, but you've got 80 to 90% of the performance in most things.
Okay.
So
First of all, can I just stop for a second? We have no idea how it stacks up against the 4090, and in fact, they wouldn't talk about it in relation to the 4090. They only, I think it was Frank Azor who, like the next day, said, I'm talking to Gordon Mung with PC World, that it was a 4080 competitor. Kind of the attitude was, obviously this is not a 4090 competitor. Look at the price segment. But if you're being very critical of it and just looking at some of the numbers that they've actually presented, first of all, there are lingering questions they did not announce, they did not talk about at the keynote itself about the potential for added latency when you're offloading the memory subsystem. They're saying they're using the world's fastest chiplet interconnect with a peak bandwidth of 5.3 terabytes per second, but there could be a latency penalty by taking it away and onto a separate system like this. I think that's probably why they didn't end up going with GPU like CU chiplets, just because there's not a fast enough interconnect technology for that yet. But the other thing
and that's the edges, the edge. It's something that they had talked about, or other people had, is, you got two big GPUs in there and you connect them, and then you've got to have some kind of connections in there, and then you have multiple memory modules around the edge. Well, how are those going to communicate? How can you have one kind of control that will do? I mean, it's the problem with the AMD CPUs, CCDs, is you cross CPU connection that is not on chip, you take a significant latency. And so, originally when I had thought about, well, how's AMD going to do this multi-chiplet thing for GPUs? And I was thinking more along the line of multiple CPU cores that are attached to a single memory controller. And the pinouts, the bumps don't make sense in that thing, because you just can't have enough connections with the die area. But with this, with a single large GPU with a bunch of memory controllers, that does work, because you've got the amount of bumps and interconnects and whatnot that can make it work. But you're right that there is going to be a latency issue. However, they cover that up with, one, there's still cache on the GPU, and there's still a large amount of caches on each of those MCDs. And so even though you've got to jump, 2 spots to get to get the main memory, you've still got that a still pretty tremendous amount of infinity cache on those memory modules that are just one hop away. And so that's one of the that's one of the drawbacks of such thing, is that you're not going to have the speed of a single monolithic die, because you can design that in there. You can control the traces, you control the wires, all of that. When you go to an interposer, you lose a little bit of control of that, and you got to slow things down. It's just the way it is. But it's still pretty dang fast. And I think that they've done a pretty decent job of figuring out where the bandwidth issues are, how to get around some of those things. And we haven't even talked about them stacking the MCDs, even though from the initial abstracts that I've seen, it doesn't add a whole lot more performance, but it is an option for later once they continue to develop the architectures and the infrastructure of all of this.
One thing that I think is interesting is when they talked about performance during the event, they had this graph. First of all, they told us that the raw, like the actual pure render advantage versus the 6950 XT, the previous flagship, was 1.5x with the XTX. Then they showed this performance graph that everybody has, which is up to 1.7x faster. Now, that's obviously going to be dependent upon the game, driver optimization, that sort of thing. But what they told us was that the actual raw power is about 1.5x. The interesting thing is they're showing only at 4K, and 4K is where the previous series lost to NVIDIA, where they were tremendous cards at 1080 and 1440, but then would regress once you went up to 4K. And I thought that was just a product of memory bandwidth as much as anything else, and they had made up for a lot of that limitation with the infinity cache, which is actually down with this generation. It was 128 megabytes with that 6900 series, those cards, and now it's 96 as the max with the XTX. But they've obviously made improvements to the memory system. What is it? I believe it's 384-bit now. Yeah, there's of the fully enabled part, the XTX, 6 64-bit MCD chiplets. So each of those providing a 64-bit memory controller. So 384 bits. So significantly wider, more memory bandwidth.
Yeah, up from 256-bit. Yeah. Plus you've got 6 controllers, and so you've got a lot more granularity going to that memory.
I'm not surprised at all that they're having big gains at 4K. I'd like to see what the gains are at 1440. I'm guessing they're much lower than 1.5x because 4K was the weak spot with the RX 6000 series. And not a single mention of 1440 that I saw. This was definitely being pushed as a 4K value alternative to NVIDIA. Price was mentioned a lot. And the fact that these are being launched at $999 for the XTX. And apparently $899 for the XT. But who here would spend $900 to get a card that's like 10 or 15% slower than the one that's $999? I don't understand that price. And I feel like it's just a placeholder until NVIDIA's 4080 12 gig replacement, whatever that's going to be, the 4070 or 4070 Ti, depending on what that launches at. I wonder if we'll see a price adjustment there, but who knows?
I think for the first month, they'll sell out of both easily.
Yes. Yeah. Availability will be... That's the big question. Yeah. We should probably get into just a basic overview of the specs. I don't know if I have the right slide in here, but there was an interesting disparity between what had been announced and the rumors about the 7900 XTX with regard to the shader count, which is 6,144, I believe. For some reason, I did not put it in this woefully inadequate news post. And the rumor had been something double that.
Aren't they like double pumping each CU somehow?
It must be
because it's like two banks of vector units that they can somehow get away with that. I can't remember. I mean, it was a function of RDNA 2. So,
I mean, on paper, other than the big jump up in memory size and the new chiplet architecture for the memory and memory controllers, it's not that big of a jump in just the shader cores. It goes from 80 to 96 CUs, and it has less infinity cache, but it has a 384-bit memory bus now instead of 256. And the clocks was the other thing. We had heard that this would be like a 3 gigahertz product, and they're talking, 2.5 gigahertz?
That boost, yeah.
So not quite as fast. This does leave room at the top. I don't know if they're playing cat and mouse with NVIDIA. But where can they go after XTX? Would it be the 7950 XTX next?
Maybe they'll just call it Radeon Does Dallas.
Or you know what? I'm stealing this.
It's pretty hardcore
from someone. But Charlie brought up the Platinum Edition. Remember those? The X850 XT PE.
Yeah, PEs.
What if there's a PE later? That has.
We haven't thought about 9550. Wait, 7950 or the 7990.
Oh, 7990. But that would be dual GPU, wouldn't it? What if that's the chiplet? What if that's the GPU chiplet model?
It's
like this bizarre rectangular package with two of those GCDs on it.
Maybe. Long and short of it, I'm happy that there's competition and their price is lower than the 4990. Performance is, from what we can extrapolate from a 6950 versus a 4090. It's going to be 80 to 85% of that speed, which is still pretty good. And considering it's 2/3 the cost. I don't know, not trying to fanboy or anything and say that this is fire, but it's a nice.
Hey,
it's nice to have something under $1,200.
Yeah,
it is, and it's well under $1,200 because it's $999. It will never be widely available for $999, at least not at launch, but it will be at AMD.com for $999. I would love
every
love
Thursday.
To see, yeah. Gavin Thomas in the YouTube chat. Any ARC news? Are you seriously hungry for ARC news?
Oh my gosh!
Do I look like I'm equipped to talk about an Intel graphics product right now?
I actually forgot to put ARC News in there. I apologize.
With my RDNA 3 jacket
and shirt.
Yeah.
and T-shirt.
You look very...
you
If I
ever-
said fire, would that be over the top? You look... It's
would.
fire.
Let's talk a little bit more about fabric, because, it's all about the fabric now that we're in a chiplet world. And this is,
It is
related.
chiplets taking over.
It's, I guess, related because TSMC has created the 3D Fabric Alliance to accelerate chiplet design.
Chiplets everywhere.
Yeah.
Everywhere now.
So everybody
Everywhere.
benefits from the work that AMD has done and working with
Let's not
TSMC
look at
so
it that
closely.
way. Let's...
Well, I mean, TSMC is their fab.
Yes, true, but this is just a strange coincidence. They didn't really...
sure.
Okay, yeah,
Sure.
yeah, all right, maybe they did.
Maybe that was part of the agreement. It's like, hey, can we use some of these learnings from our experience?
And AMD gracefully said, but of course.
Or maybe that was just required. Like, we have no choice.
I mean, we've been moving to a chiplet world since, since computers were invented. Because think about it, memory controllers, I/O, CPUs, graphics cards, all of these things were once disparate chips slowly connected over old buses. And they've slowly gotten faster and together.
Mm-hmm.
And now we have to go the other way and remove these things from the main die and put them in other dies, but you still need a fast connection. It's like what was once old is now new again.
Yeah.
It's like the thing going from microcomputers to mainframes to personal computers and then back to like blades and virtual computers, and it all
So you're
just
saying
goes
the dumb
around.
terminal's coming back.
Well, I mean, I kind of consider myself a dumb terminal anyway.
Oh, that's fair. You're certainly not wise.
No.
That's funny. That's funny. He's more Tektronix.
Yeah. I was going to go with Wang, but okay.
Yeah,
Wang.
everybody wants some Wang.
SGI. Remember SGI?
Yeah.
Oh, heck yeah.
Silicon Graphics.
What was the interconnect between their chips called?
Oh.
Was it InfiniBand?
NuLink.
NuLink.
And now we have this story called
Not a he.
something about
not a
NuLink
who,
interconnect
what a
tech.
ha.
I wonder.
Eliyan.
I read this. I'm like, wait a minute, isn't that like an SGI thing? And I had to look it up, and it was NuLink, not NuLink. But so startup chiplet designer Eliyan, if that's how it's pronounced, they have a NuLink interconnect tech, and it could be a competitor to what TSMC is trying to do with their interconnect.
Look who's pouring money into this. Interesting.
who is
Intel and Micron.
really?
Yep.
Yeah, so TSMC maybe is not going to own the full slice of the chiplet pie. Did I mix my metaphors on that? I probably did. I'm
They
going
got
with
the
it.
whole bag of chiplets.
Oh, yep, that's better. They're not getting the whole bag of chiplets.
So definitely investigate that if you're interested.
Yeah.
It is. We're obviously in the very early days, but clearly this is where the industry is going. I mean, if you're an Apple fan, you think the industry is just going to all SoCs. You're just going to have an SoC that's ultra powerful, unified memory, an elegant solution.
That way is
super
correct.
quiet systems that get really,
That
really
is the way.
hot. Yeah. But on the PC side, it's like, no, let's start putting, make the chips bigger, make the GPUs bigger than they've ever been, drawing more power than they ever have. And it's beautiful. It's like Steve Jobs once talked about trucks, like PCs on a desk are like a truck. And then, most people just need a car, and the car is like the appliance style computer that you don't need to get into and upgrade. But then your truck, if you're like a CAD or making 3D movies, then yeah, you still need a desktop,
But
workstation.
not everybody needs that truck.
Right,
That
not
was
everybody needs a
Steve's
truck.
point.
That's what he said.
Yeah.
You don't have to drive an F-350 to and from your kid's school in the morning.
That's
what
right.
People
And-
do.
But Intel and Micron also think chiplets. That's an interesting idea.
Actually, you know what? Hey, speaking of chiplets and Intel isn't just bringing chiplets. They're bringing HBM
Clever.
to-
CPUs.
Yeah, to the data center. It's Intel Max. Intel Max series. Remember, what is it? Ponte Vecchio? That was just a code name. It's actually Intel Max. Intel Data Center GPU Max series is what it's now officially known as. And it's kind of impressive what they've done, especially on the CPU side, because where's the actual listing here? So the Xeon Max CPU, quoting Intel's press room here, offers up to 56 performance cores, constructed of 4 tiles connected using Intel's embedded multi-die interconnect bridge, EMIB technology, in a 350-watt envelope. So it has 64 gigabytes of HBM. And I think there's a
high bowel movement.
Excuse me. There's
Maybe
a version,
it's hard bowel movement.
There's a version of the GPU that has 128 gigabytes of HBM.
Yep.
That's the Max Series 1550.
Very affordable.
And that's
sure
HBM
not, but
2E.
We're talking like very, very high bandwidth, and they're claiming
This is some serious data center stuff that you've got to do some heavy duty programming to extract everything out of that, because memory management is not going to be exactly simple, but once you hit it, it's going to be fantastic, because that's a lot of memory, very fast, extremely low latency. It's nice that AMD was able to do HBM for so many years with their graphics cards and really kind of get the technology down.
Oh, okay.
So
But they're not the only one. I mean, Z-Links did HBM, I believe, as well. Some good stuff, Maynard. Good stuff.
AMD has a data center event tomorrow. So we'll see if Intel's claim that they have 68% less power usage than AMD Milan X cluster for the same HPCG performance claim is still true after tomorrow. We'll have to see. Because they're claiming some wins. Okay.
You know, that's like 3 for
applications here.
That's going to be an EX3D stuff for this next gen EPYC.
Be interesting. Only heard rumors, but that's it.
Speaking of rumors,
I'll tell you, the pipe cleaner has already gone through, and you can get it if you're lucky for $329. Pipe cleaner.
What, the X3D?
Yeah,
I've been going back to AMD's page repeatedly, and it's still.
I've been looking for it. I can see it for $369 now, somewhere. But I'm still waiting for that $329 price point again.
Man has his limits, right, Josh?
Oh, I do. You got to set them.
Speaking of limits, Andre in the chat says, you guys need a girl host. I can't look at you guys for too long. Like,
girl.
How do you think we feel?
That's what I
We
said.
have to stare at each other, too.
All right, that's why I try to keep like the monitor up as much as possible.
I mean, here I am. I mean, you got Charlie Brown. You got Sebastian, who looks like a 14-year-old boy. You got Brett, who, well, let's not go through there. And then
Please,
Jeremy, he's got frosting on the bottom of his mustache, and you wonder what that's from, but you don't really want to wonder what it's from.
But you know.
Well, you know, I did see a roommate, so.
Yeah. He's also frosty on the chin.
Yes.
Right.
Well,
Speaking of rumors,
somebody said
not going to go there.
It was on Best Buy's website for that price, the X3D. So I just went there.
Was.
And they can be notified. I wonder if this will ever come back in stock at this price.
I think it will.
You think it will? It better.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd like to buy one at $329.
I should have, but
Such a good deal.
I'm cheap and I hate myself.
Okay.
But I'm redundant.
But I already had the 7800X, so it was like, why should I buy it? Oh, because it's so much better.
You had a 7800X?
What? Nobody does. You mean a 5800X?
No, sorry, a 5800X.
5800X.
Yeah, the vanilla 5800X.
Oh, yeah, well, the X3D. No, listen, the X3D is faster in gaming, but it is not faster in applications because of the clock speed.
No. Okay.
Looking at Tech Power up here, they are saying the canceled NVIDIA GeForce RTX 4080 12 gig will be rebadged as a 4070 Ti and bound for January? ? So that's the rumor right now. According to Copite7 Kimmy,
Reliable source.
Well, yeah, it's, traditionally has a decent track record with the Twitter data mining leaks. And obviously, we already know a lot about the GPU because it had another name at one point. My question is just going to be price. Because now that AMD is going to have the XT at 900, is a 4070 Ti fast enough to justify that price? Are they going to talk about RTX features and benefits and, DLSS and software? Or are they going to lower the price if the XT outperforms it? I mean, according to Josh, the XTX is already 90% of a 4090s.
90%.
If you extrapolate that extrapolation down to the XT, then it's 80% of a 4090. So that's obviously going to be faster than a 4070 Ti.
You're kind of confusing me now.
Because then the 40... I mean, if you look at the 4080, even if the 4080 is somewhere in between, like a 3090 and a 4090, then
would you characterize that with Red Dead Redemption 2 benchmark?
Well,
or are you talking more of a RTX type ray tracing?
Yeah, make sure
benchmark?
you only benchmark the Ryzen Radeon specific games, because I think that'll give you the clearest picture of the true benefit,
obviously,
of the Radeon's architecture.
Ray tracing, what's that?
Well, I mean, hey, AMD has ray tracing.
Trace ray's better.
Dude, Quake 2 RTX still looks great. Yeah. Plays good too.
I did post some reasoned projections of where this actually falls in the staff channel.
Oh, brother.
No, that's just silliness.
Are we really going to keep on? I think at some point, honestly, there will be some actual reviews of these new cards that we can figure out.
But you know what? For the next 6 months, it's going to be useless because you won't be able to pick any of them up.
I mean, if they thought it beat the 4080, wouldn't they be able to charge $1,200 for it? If it's competing on price and the 4080 is $1,200 and their card is $1,000, doesn't that mean that it's probably going to be like 5% slower than the 4080?
Probably.
That'll probably end up trading blows with the 4080, and those AMD titles will be a big advantage for them, and then in stuff like Metro Exodus Enhanced, it'll be lower, and
Yeah, and we still don't know how much they added to make RT performance better as compared to what NVIDIA has, and still, NVIDIA has a lot of matrixy computing parts that I don't think AMD really has, and so. FSR is not DLSS, but DLSS 3 is not exactly DLSS 2, and frame interpolation. Yeah, it gets really confusing because math is math, and there's more than one way to skin a cat. And we have to figure out what is the better experience, and that's going to suck.
Does anybody remember this card?
Oh, wasn't
I
it
do
gorgeous?
remember that card.
How
I love that little
short-lived.
cube in the end.
Yeah, I love the cube in the end. This is the Radeon 7. I'm going back to our review of that card, and if we look at one of their slides, they talked about how it had 1.8x gaming performance per area, I guess, compared to Vega 64. It was a Vega 64 die shrink that was clocked higher, and it had 2 additional HBM2 modules, so it could double the bandwidth as well as double the memory capacity. So you're like,
get another pipe cleaner.
It was, I mean, the bandwidth was incredible. 1 terabyte. We only just have that with the 4090 on the NVIDIA side of things. And it was just, it looked so good, had so much memory. We were talking like, how could you ever even use 16 gigabytes? And they were talking, at the event with us saying, this is for content creators as much as it is for gamers. This is fantastic. There's so many things you can do with this, with all of this fast HBM2 memory. And then we actually started seeing gaming performance, and this is an older article, so it doesn't have the, I guess it does have the, anyway, if we actually look at some benchmarks, I don't even know what I tested here. Oh boy, Ashes of Singularity. Far Cry 5. Man, this is a woefully out-of-date article. It ended up just basically trading blows with the 2080, is what it comes down to. If you go out and look at reviews from that era, it was not consistently faster than even a 2080. And it just sounded unbelievable. And it looked so impressive on paper. But then the 5700 series came out, the 5700 XT was generally faster in most games, and the Radeon 7 went EOL just a few short months after it was launched. So I'm not saying that the new product is a Radeon 7. I'm just saying that sometimes if you look at the charts, once the actual performance numbers are known, it doesn't look as impressive as the theoretical like 1.8x, 1.7x, 1.5x gains. We'll just have to wait and see. I'm just a little worried because of the price. That's all. They're a
We've got this one. We've got one benchmark that really, really depends on memory bandwidth, and it blows everyone away. But don't do that in a normal game, because, well, you know.
I'm discovering that
benchmark.
They're just benchmarking sucks. By the way, I just want to run 3D Mark because it's so linear. It's like, oh, this card is faster than that card, and that card is faster than this card. But you actually start testing games, and there are some games that are way more CPU dependent than GPU dependent, and even at high resolutions, I could not believe. And I mean, I'm very late to the party here. It's like been 2 years, but Microsoft Flight Simulator, I've been trying to use that a lot lately in benchmarking, and it is it's very CPU bound. So, I mean, way more than most games. So I'm not getting that nice, clean scaling from one GPU to the next. It's like, why is it that I'm getting almost the same result with a 4090 as I am with a 3090? And then I realized, well, it's the same CPU, and the resolution isn't high enough on this ultra wide to really be GPU bound. So that would have to be like a 4K or higher test, or maybe one of those new, I don't know. Let's pause here for a word from this week's podcast sponsor.
Getting a good working business team to become more than any individual member takes effort. Want to help your team work more efficiently? Does your current tooling scatter information and communication channels in different directions? Well, then we should talk about Coda. If you want to eliminate the loose ends that can slow down your team to a crawl, pool your resources and put everything into Coda docs and see how easy it is for your team to get it all together. Once you start to work in Coda, you can stop asking things like, hey, is this the latest version? Where do those performance stats live? We're maxed out on our licenses. Could we get the usage reports? Hey, what's the status on the media buy? And what was the decision on that? This kind of confusion and accompanying limitations are what you get when your work products and processes are spread across a bunch of tools that are supposed to support your team, but really, they hijack your collaboration flow and slow down team momentum. Coda centralizes your work, no matter the format, so your team can cooperate without roadblocks. If you want better collaboration without the aggravation, Coda is the all-in-one tool that's going to make a difference. You can start right now for free. Head over to coda.io/PCPer. That's CODA.io/PCPer to get started now for free. Coda.io. Take a look.
We're back, and it's been a year and a bit since Windows 11 launched, and I hope not on this Latitude laptop, because that looks a little too old for Windows 11.
I don't think the 630 would run it, no. But
no.
The problem is
you'd have to
that a lot of corporations are still handing those out, and there's no TPM 2.0 on there.
Excellent.
But by now, Windows 11 must have super penetration. Right, Josh?
What's the number?
15.4%.
15.4? Okay.
Yeah, which is amazingly up from 2% from last month, so I have a feeling a lot of those latitudes died over the last month, and they had to go get an upgrade.
How convenient.
Yeah. But yeah, so Landsweeper, which is not one I use, but it's definitely one of the larger corporate asset managers, and they do scrape a bit of the data from the people that are using it, said that half of the systems it monitors are even capable of enabling TPM 2.0. So they've literally got rid of half of their customer base from the businesses just off the bat. So yeah, it's shocking that it's got such pathetic penetration in what is generally what Microsoft sees as their biggest customer base. I was also amused that Android is up to just over 42% of all things are running an Android operating system.
Huh.
Sadly, probably out-of-date ones, but, still.
That gives us the perfect transition, because you know why Android, obviously, is on everything? Because it's free. And it runs on ARM. And it's so easy to implement Android on ARM because there's no... Wait a minute, hold on.
Oh, wait. Whoops.
Qualcomm is claiming that ARM will start charging royalties.
Oh yeah, this is truly hilarious. of all of the insane legal cases that we've had, of which a few have been ARM versus Qualcomm, or vice versa, this takes the cake. Qualcomm picked up Nuvia, which made a lot of ARM stuff, because ARM doesn't make processors; they license their designs. So when Qualcomm bought Nuvia, they said, "Well, we own all the IP now, so we don't have to pay you licenses, ARM." To which ARM is like, Nuvia paid us licensing. You don't get to just sort of say that you now own it. So Qualcomm threw a hissy fit, lawyered up, and is essentially claiming that this is proof that ARM is now going to be completely changing their business model. The whole way that they've operated, the way that they have the most processors on the planet by several orders of magnitude, is that they're not going to be licensing it in the same way. It will only be ARM. So whereas, AMD put out, or Intel put out the chip with the ARM add-on on it, well, you wouldn't be allowed to do that. It'd have to be 100% ARM. NVIDIA playing with their ARM for the GPU talking to each other. No. It would have to be an ARM GPU and an ARM processor and an ARM interconnect. And, just essentially destroy their entire business model that has been up until this point and made them, one of the most successful companies on the planet. Of course, you got to look at this and say that Qualcomm is just being pissy because they figured they'd gotten an out on the licensing fees, and they were told that they didn't. And so now they're just really, really mad and trying to convince everyone that ARM is completely changing everything completely. They haven't gone so far as to claim that ARM's going to start making processors, but I'm expecting that to come out in the court case at some point. It's ridiculous.
So they're claiming, the documents I've seen there's so much redacted stuff in it, you can't really read it, but
yeah,
they're claiming that they've been threatened, basically, that you need to start paying up, or, you're not going to get the license when this one expires, and
correct,
it's going to destroy your business.
That's how ARM works. And by saying that you bought a company that was an ARM licensee, and therefore you don't have to license what they licensed anymore because you own that licensee's product. And that's the basis of their case. And it's baffling. But for Qualcomm, that would be huge. To not have to pay the licensing fees to ARM, they would double their revenue immediately. At least, I'm sure. So you can see why they would do this, but it's ridiculous.
They wouldn't double the revenue, but it would be a significant jump.
Yeah. It'd be a huge jump. And of course, they're saying this ARM's going to do this to everyone, to which ARM is like, well, yeah, we kind of do. That's our business. But then again, you've got the little flyaway part of ARM over in China that, they fired the CEO and just said, that is I'm not leaving.
A thing. They
but it took them, 2 years, 3 years?
Something like that. 2 years.
All right, let's look at a racing rig. This is not just a steering wheel and some paddles.
I know. Jeremy called Josh out on this, which is why I pulled this one in. Something like, I don't know. He said
something like this.
I did nothing in this. He did it all himself. It's a rig that does triple screens, and it's got a mount for your racing wheel, but it also has a mount for your aircraft throttle and stick and pedals.
Yep. And there's a soundbar mounted underneath one of the front monitor there.
Yeah.
Nice. I didn't notice that.
You got the subwoofer in the back.
Yeah,
you got the PC to the left.
It's got a place to hang your headphones. Mm-hmm. And there you go. $800 to make Josh jealous. The problem is that's just the frame. The wheel, the HOTAS, everything else is going to cost you a little bit more.
Just a bit.
And there's a whole bunch of options. There's even, remember the old butt kicker? The engine that you put underneath your chair so that it would kick you in the
like
air
a puck?
Have you met my wife?
Was that like a large puck that you could attach to the chair?
Yeah.
And it'd thump you if you if it hit like your driving games and you hit gravel, it was supposed to shake you around, and people didn't like them because they broke quickly and it was literally a pain in the ass. But they've brought it back for this. You can rent one or buy one rather.
All right, are we ready for Security Corner?
I think so.
Are we ever?
I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not. But it's all you, Jeremy. This is a story about Microsoft Copilot programming aid leaking secrets and ignoring licenses.
Yeah. So Microsoft designed this thing for people that don't like to code, which more or less will take naturally written language and turn it into an app of your choice, right? It was originally meant for Visual Basic, but then they realized, wait, we own GitHub. We could just scrape everything off of there and teach it how to, turn natural language into operations and make it work. Problem is, like many things like to wander around and collect pretty things, it didn't really pay attention to who owned it or whether or not they should have it. So one of the guys that has produced a lot of stuff and posted onto GitHub is like, yeah, so I searched for a bunch of my code and found it. And we're talking like over 100 lines of code, which under like an OSS license, you have to require, the author's name is required to be attributed. Copilot don't care. Copilot just grabs it and says, hey, it looks like you're trying to write an email. Here's the code to do it. Oh, too bad it was proprietary from someone who posted it to GitHub that maybe shouldn't have because there are private repositories, but Microsoft owning it can get at them. So there was also a few snippets of proprietary code that really, really should not have been snatched that has. And now people are just paying for Copilot and getting it to write their code for them using code that is essentially been pirated. But it's not Microsoft's fault. It's the AI did it.
Sure.
It's totally the AI.
This is the future.
Intellectual property, courtesy of your AI.
Going right back to bleeping computer for our second security story here. OpenSSL fixes 2 high-severity vulnerabilities. What you need to know. This is from back on November 1st, but what are the patches for?
Remember Log4j?
Oh, go ahead. That's yeah. Yeah.
Pretty much.
This has been compared to that, but this is again only an OpenSSL 3.0, of which there's a lot of other code out there that's not based on OpenSSL 3 yet. In all fairness,
What was it, like almost 10,000 systems?
yes, but there's no proof of concept that this remote code execution can be actually put into play quite yet, and it hasn't been proven it's viable. Just that it looks like it will be possible.
Yeah, because that was one of the things when they first started reporting on this. It did sound like Log4j, like the world is crashing down, and then as you read into it, it's like, okay, yeah, in theory this is an issue. Oh wait, but it's also been patched, so it's probably not going to spread to a whole bunch of things, except for those lazy people that migrated and then never did anything since.
3 is bigger than 1, and is the chart that Sebastian just had up there a moment ago, which was the sort of global world usage of the very, very, very commonly used OpenSSL to handle all kinds of encryption. OpenSSL 3.0 as a percentage is actually relatively small. It's only a
Relatively
single
small?
digit
Yeah,
single percentage
1.5% of the
global usage.
Yeah.
But if you're using it, and check your systems if you might be, if you're on something fairly new, you want to make sure that you've turned off certain things or patched it immediately.
Like
This
if
is
you're
not
playing with the new Linux kernel.
Yeah, you're an early adopter, and you should stay in the know.
This is not viable yet, but it is possible.
Gaming,
Yep.
quick hits, and these better be quick.
Quick.
Atomic Heart gets a release date and an odd new trailer. What is odd about it?
Well, it should take about, 6 or 7 minutes to run, except it's done in high speed and only takes about 1 minute and 20 or so.
What?
It looks pretty, but I don't quite understand why they went with what they went with.
Okay. Yeah, this is...
And then there'll be a cinematic.
Okay.
And then we're back to...
Oh, wait, I thought that the speed was just screwed up. Like, I'll just go like half speed on YouTube, but
no.
Then the other parts would be interminable.
But yeah, I don't know.
It's just how fast
gorgeous.
you move in the game? Is that was like, oh, it's hyper...
No.
No? Okay. They should just re-upload this. It doesn't... It's strange.
That's okay. You know, I kind of like this. I kind of like this because, you know, we get so many trailers and whatnot that ruin everything.
Yeah.
This does not ruin a damn thing.
Well, yeah, you have to.
Well, except like that.
Was that a quick hit for you?
It was.
That was a
Moving
very
on.
quick hit. Yes.
It was quick.
Let's see. What is next? Too quick.
Oh,
'cause
this
I
is a
wasn't
much
even
slower
ready.
game.
Wasn't even ready.
This is
Riven.
very
Riven is a
slow.
much slower game.
Quite.
We've
But
all heard of Riven, the sequel to Myst. It's getting an official, quote, from the ground up, end quote, remake.
Okay, do you guys remember when, you know, obviously Myst came out? Sebastian was too young.
Yeah.
And
I
then
had a
about
copy of it.
12 years later, they actually had a real-time 3D Myst version.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of amazing it took that long. But now we got stuff that just knocks your socks off real time.
I like the pre-rendered look of the original Myst.
That's nice, dear.
Okay, in development.
I think it might be enjoyable.
That was 30 seconds to just have a logo and say in development.
Yeah, I mean, it's introducing you to the pacing of the game.
That's it. Okay, yeah. We're building it from the ground up. We haven't done it yet. We're still talking about it. It's mostly on like napkins, but
We're in IRC now,
Yeah.
and we're talking about it.
We are talking about it and sharing images and memes back and forth.
This could introduce a whole new audience to the Riven Myst saga.
Yeah, dozens of people are excited about this. Almost 40 years
Yes.
on, Elite on BBC Micro has an impressive new editor mod. Yes, of course. This is the groundbreaking.
It kind of is, but it's literally for the 40-year-old game. They have literally put out a universe editor for the 40-year-old version of Elite.
Well, hey, some of the times you started a game and the universe that you spawned in socked donkeys. So it'd be nice to be able to, you know, unmess it up.
So is that what's behind you today? Bront?
Yeah. Yes. Yes, it is. I don't know who
Brent.
Bront is.
Hey, Brent.
They're good games,
or
Bront.
Martyr.
Yes,
Okay,
but
yeah,
this
it
was
is.
Bront.
This was a wonderful game. I really enjoyed it. And I don't think that the radar concept has been done better since, honestly.
No.
I think that
Although I
was
don't miss having to match rotations with the space stations.
Homeworld.
That's on the
That could
upper,
be-
Homeworld.
that's on the
had
upper
great
screen.
radar.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, I don't know. They may have stolen that idea. I haven't played Homeworld
Probably.
recently.
But I don't care.
Yeah, pretty much. And they did a good... And it was prettier, because, I mean, it wasn't running on a
Well,
6502.
more advanced. Yeah. But anyway, Elite was groundbreaking in a lot of ways, and it was a very enjoyable game and had a lot of replayability, at least for me. I enjoyed it.
They fit a whole universe in a little tiny thing. It was different every time.
All right. And finally, Bungie is begging PS5 owners to please stop playing the old PS4 version of Destiny 2.
I know we know it's easy. Please stop.
Please download our giant file. Does it fix something? Are there bugs? I know that not every PS4 game works perfectly on the PS5.
It's
But
today's public service announcement. Please stop playing the PS4 version of Destiny 2 on a PS5. Please, please, please.
well, I mean, is there a new PS4 version update that's free? Or they just don't want you playing at all?
Yeah, it's
No, they
free.
want you
I
playing
mean,
their new
They
one.
have a free PS5 upgrade. So they want you
Yeah,
to...
yeah.
Oh, yeah. Why not? Why would you play the PS4 version? Unless it doesn't
because
have, like...
it's convenient.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you... I have a PS5 and I haven't tried to do this. But the only game that I transferred my PS4 save to the PS5 version was Final Fantasy VII Remake. But I don't know. I don't think it necessarily works seamlessly from one version to the next. Maybe it does. I have no idea.
Well, I mean, they're trying to make it more difficult to play the version from the 4.
Okay.
Like, apparently there's all sorts of warnings and stuff. Hey, would you like to just download a couple of 100 gigs and play the PlayStation 5 version? Which would be nice, right? Please?
That's what they're saying.
Yeah.
My guess is eventually they'll pull the plug on it or something and then make it more and more difficult for you to do that one. They're tired of supporting it. That's my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Indeed.
And it's free. Free. Upgrade.
Yeah, it's like Microsoft saying, "Oh, you got a problem with Windows 10? We'll upgrade to Windows 11."
No.
Yeah, no.
No, it feels different. That doesn't feel right.
You have a problem with the PS5? Get a damn Xbox. That's what, they're not saying that? Okay. All right.
Nope, that's different. That's different also.
Let's go to picks.
That's good customer service.
Let's go to picks of the week. Josh,
Picks of the week.
started.
Picks of the week. Why do we want to talk about picks of the week? You can't even get it. You can order it, but you can't get it.
It's a GPU, isn't it?
Maybe you can't get it.
No.
You have to be well
Solid
connected.
Somebody I know here is well connected.
Oh.
Solidime. The P44 Pro series. This is the it's the faster version. So Solidime is a group that is now comprised of SK Hynix and X Intel storage. And their P44 is really one of their first truly new products. It's basically the SK Hynix Platinum P41, but with better firmware and a very special software driver that you install. And it supposedly does a lot more interesting things than the base P41 does. And you can get this for $30 less than the SK Hynix P41 Platinum for the 2 terabyte version.
Not to.
Yeah, but it usually ships within 1 to 4 weeks, which kind of bummer. But they're available.
It's a hell of a buffer
they're doing interesting things with it. I'm kind of interested about the Solidime P41, which is different from the SK Hynix P41. Their marketing people are obviously insane.
They learned from Western Digital.
Yeah, I don't know. But supposedly the software component and the firmware component even makes the QLC non-cache version still really quick overall, and they're dirt cheap. So, something to keep an eye on. A friend of ours named Alan, I believe, works for the group. So, yeah, good stuff, Maynard. Interesting.
Yeah, when this was announced, and then actually ended up launching on the same day as the 990 Pro, and I was actually supposed to get, I was on the list to get the new Solidime drives, but they did not arrive in time for the launch. I have them now. It's one of the many things that arrived right when I was having to travel for this AMD event. So I will get to that soon. I'm very excited to find out if I was on the call. They were talking about that software that you alluded to, Josh. And they were saying the numbers that we're advertising, like the 7,000 megabytes per second thing, is like, we think you'll be very pleasantly surprised by the performance. Like they're understating the performance. And then in the Q&A section, the team said, actually, yes, this is the same platform as Platinum P41. It is exactly the same hardware. It is a different firmware. And then they think we'll be very pleased with the boost we get from their software. I think they were talking like 10 to 12% performance.
That's significant.
It vary. So
Yeah.
You got to figure how powerful modern CPUs are and how many cycles are probably wasted and the stuff that they can do in terms of storage. That'd be interesting. Can't wait to see the results.
Yes.
Like maybe just stepping out of the way entirely and using direct storage. I mean, that's something a CPU can do, is just get out of the way. I mean, that's a thing.
Well, that's GPU, but yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
We're getting to that point, though, where you kind of want the CPU to just get away.
DMA used to be a real thing on non-Intel CPUs. By the way,
DMA used to be a thing on Intel CPUs.
it wasn't quite as D as.
It wasn't PO.
Let's not talk about the D. Okay.
Let's not talk about the D.
Jeremy, your pick.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as a Canadian, I looked at the U.S. pricing of the new cards from NVIDIA and AMD and realized that, yeah, that's probably not a thing that's going to happen, at least anytime soon. So I'm looking around, hey, we got any deals? And lo and behold, if you're a Canadian, And while supplies last, Canada Computers actually has a ridiculously good deal on a 6700 XT. There are a couple of others that were sort of good deals, but for $500, that is a hell of a cart. And it's in stock. We can actually grab it, as opposed to, standing in line and waiting. And even if you check on your side of the border on Amazon, it's only about $60 more than it is that you'd pay down there on special. So yeah, if you need a new card and you realize that the chances of you getting one of these brand new ones is pretty much nothing, and you don't want to spend $1,000 on one of the existing ones, it's a pretty good deal.
I find it sad that you think this way when the nucleus of RDNA, it has its roots. The DNA of RDNA is Canada. ATI, the company that AMD bought.
Yeah. You're absolutely right, but the damn thing's going to be like $1,600.
Canadian, yes. Yeah. And that's just for the vanilla version. I'm sure there'll be OC versions that are much more expensive.
Oh yeah,
definitely check your local corner micro center, everybody, for these.
What's the what?
Looks like $379.
Oh, nice deal.
For 67 XT, ROG Strix, overclocked. I don't know how many of those they have. $389 for the Asus XT dual overclock dual fan. Anyway, everybody just go right on down to their local micro center and just peruse the shelves.
Everybody has one. Micro Center, it's the place where AM5 is a cheap platform because they just give away the RAM. They've done that at least twice so far. Obviously, the AM5 processors are not selling particularly well. Anyway, your pick, Brett.
I stole this article from Jeremy, which was "Give me my mocha," and then I read it, and I'm like, "Oh yeah, I remember this." It is a really excellent solution for those who need to bring internet to, a corner of their compound or property or house or attached outbuilding or whatever that has old coax that is lying dormant because you're not shuffling video around anymore. Everything is wireless or IP based at this point. However, if you need a signal boost wherever this cable still exists, there are ways to bring internet from either as broadcast or point to point using these transceivers or adapters, and they aren't that expensive. And with channel bonding, can get up to 2.5 gigabit. I actually bought some a little while ago, so I thought I'd bring it up again as another PSA for those people who find themselves in a very similar situation of a far-flung room where the Wi-Fi is weak, or just because wired is often better, especially for gaming due to latency issues on Wi-Fi. These Go Coax adapters, that is the next link over in the sheet, were $130 for a pair of them, and I do very similar to those right there for point to point rather than doing a broadcast on your whatever you have for a coax network is really going to be excellent. Even if you put a Wi-Fi extender, on the other end. I'm actually using these right now for the room here, and I game out of it, obviously broadcast out of it. They work great. And up to 2.5 gigabit speed. They're actually less expensive than I thought. $120 for a pair.
What about latency? You're talking about using Wi-Fi extenders and this coaxial to Ethernet converter.
In some ways, that's just to get you Wi-Fi. Not that I can detect a whole heck of a lot. I haven't really seen
Team Fortress 2 ping testing.
Somebody still plays that?
I haven't.
The only time I ever broke that out was when I was testing network equipment to test ping.
But clearly,
yes, Josh. Actually, someone just put out a mod with Titanfall Max for Team Fortress 2. Yeah. But I think this stuff works better than PowerLink.
Sap in my dispenser.
This stuff definitely works better than PowerLink.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you don't want
PowerLink network.
If you're going to be using this sort of thing over coax, like I was trying to say, I think the point-to-point stuff works a little bit better than broadcast because it actually divides the bandwidth based upon how many endpoints in use there are. So if you divide the 2.5, you get 1.25 if you're dividing it by 2, and they both max out. Anyway, so point-to-point is probably the best bang for the buck on this. And well priced for the technology and abilities it gives you to use latent wiring.
Latent.
Yes.
Wiring.
Latent.
Mate.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well,
Inherent latency.
I have
Nothing.
pick.
We know.
I have a pick.
Oh, do you?
I'll just grab something on the shelf behind me.
Okay.
Yeah, as he shows off his RDNA 3
Exactly.
sweater
That was
again.
the real reason I had to move. It's the AMD Athlon 64 for socket 939. Now, socket 754 was great, but socket 939 was so much better.
Even
because you
better.
got dual channel memory. So much more bandwidth. And this is a 3500 plus. Still sealed in the original box. Look at that AMD
Oh, I
sticker
hate
on
you.
there.
How much did you pay for that?
Like $30, I think.
Are you serious?
I'm
That's
serious.
insane.
When?
2 years ago, maybe.
Yeah, I was going to say you can't do that
God.
now.
I'm always on the lookout for retro hardware deals, Josh. And once in a while,
For
you
inexpensive
find some.
prices.
It was from like a what was it? Like a recycling center or something. They wanted next to nothing for them. So
So you
They have a
offer
whole-
them
Yeah,
next
it's like
Stack
when
of
the K62 Plus and the K63 Pluses, you can get them for $19.25 a pop. I went and got one. Should have gotten more, but I was poor. Or $30 was a big deal at the time.
you know what is really expensive? Next gen.
Voodoo 6s?
Yes, but next gen. You know how AMD bought next gen and then that became
Yep.
Yeah.
K6?
Yep.
Well, the pre-K6 next gen CPUs, those are really expensive. We're talking like broken pins, $300.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
I have
because
one-
there's only like 10,000 of them made.
Yeah. I have
If
one
even
next
that.
gen chip, and it's actually, I think it might be the math coprocessor chip. It is strange. I have nothing to plug it into. I got it in a lot with some other stuff like a Pentium Pro and random processors, and then this next gen was in the box. Like, oh, interesting. Yeah. All right.
Good story. High five.
Yeah, thanks.
Nice one, Mater.
Oh! Speaking of rare and odd computer hardware, I'll have to do a video on this at some point because over on the other side of the basement here, I have a very innocent, average-looking Dell business desktop. It's an
Oh, really?
Optiplex something or other. And I'm like, oh, who cares? And it's a Pentium 3. Yeah, who cares? It is a Rambus Pentium 3 system.
Our DRAM.
So, yeah, I have never seen another one. I paid like $100 for this thing because I'm like, this is a bad price for a very average desktop, but it's RD RAM. I was looking at the pictures like, no, that's not RD RAM. It is.
You got Terminators in there?
I can't remember if
Must.
there's two of these. They're not Terminators. They're continuity DIMMs, Josh.
Continuity.
Yeah.
The C
Continuity
rims
DIMM.
or whatever, crims. All right. Yeah. Josh, you have an outro for us this week?
Gosh. Not particularly, but I'll just go. Some days you're the hammer, some days you're the skillet. I don't know what those two things have to do with each other, but eventually they meet, and the results are electric. So to keep that in mind as you doze off tonight and your heroin added sleep, think of us, your hardware people,
What?
with crappy hardware picks, and hope that one day we can make sense of this world and this podcast. So I apologize for not being as loquacious as I once was, but it's
I put you
It's
on the
been a long
spot. It's
week.
My fault. It's been 2 weeks. You're not in the
It's true.
swing of things.
It's true.
sorry.
But You really need to drop that into a film noir style, black and white, a bit grainy.
No, I honestly,
Yeah.
I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think the quality was high enough to justify any special editing.
Sorry.
And whatever you do,
Anyway,
don't think
That's the
about
thing
it while you're
improv.
sleeping.
It's sometimes
That's just bad.
Josh has done some legendary improv on this show before.
It's true.
So.
It's true. They can't all be gold, Jerry.
No. I mean, if you watch Mystery Science Theater 3000, their episodes were like they're just hitting on all cylinders, and it is hilarious. And then there are episodes
Yep.
where it's like
The next one is just
ooh.
you and your tired friends making bad jokes.
Wow, way
It's
to
just
really
bad.
pump up my ego there. I appreciate that. Josh,
That's what we're
it's
here for,
okay.
Josh.
You can just end this all
what?
right now without calling a 1-900 number. And believe you me, I have ended things in the 80s on 1-900. But not anymore, because we have this thing called the internet.
Yep.
And you can find all kinds of really interesting things on the internet, including this podcast, which I don't know why you would want to find it, but some people do, because maybe they're masochists. Maybe they just don't have a very good feeling of self. Maybe they're truly above the rest of us and find something of value. But in any case, I'd like to thank you for joining us. And hopefully you will find something of value, even though Sebastian never has a pick worth a damn, because you can't pick up a $30 939 pin Athlon 64 processor these days for $30. So good night.
Thank you, Josh. That was great.
Hell, you can barely get a pack of Newcastle for $30 nowadays.
No,
I don't know.
can't.
The eBay resale market is not good. People are not on there to spend a lot of money. They're on there for deals. I'm going to look right now and prove you wrong. 939, 3,500 plus. And you're going to be amazed at the lack of any results that I get. No, here we go. What if this is even the same company that I bought it from? They have more than 10 available. It says 53 sold. Maybe I was one of those 53. The price is
Maybe.
$35 now.
Oh,
I think I
inflation hits
For a
everything.
sealed box? Are you serious?
No, I'm serious. Look.
That's
Shaving cream. That ain't bad.
Well,
Yeah.
if you want a 939, 3,500 plus sealed, you can still buy them. This place has probably a pallet of them. Tida Link Corp on eBay. Just search for it. The shipping is kind of high, but I mean, shipping is high now. You can't send anything for less than like $10 or $11 from California to the Midwest for sure anymore.
do they sell a compatible heatsink as well?
It comes with it.
It comes
Well,
with
I can tell you,
right. I forgot
there's
about
a
that.
PIB processor in box.
there's
Yeah.
176 results for socket 939 for motherboards.
You can hear it rattling around in there. Actually, I have a couple of Athlon XPs still in the blister pack. You know that blister pack, and then they have the green.
Oh, yeah.
I have two of those. I have like a 1800 plus and a 22 or 2400 plus, and then this is my only 939 sealed. I need to get. I don't even know if I have a 939 motherboard.
$39.
I don't either. And let me tell you, I got a lot
Pretty
of
sure.
stuff.